Welcome to Spirit Soul Sense, Information for Your Soul, and I am Sharice, and I want to talk to you about how spirituality and sexuality are related. I'm going to start with my definitions of sexuality and spirituality. These are not things that I've made up, but based on the things that I've read, I've come to my own definition. So you're not going to find this exact wording in the dictionary or in a book somewhere. It's my interpretation of all the information that I've gathered, because I've been thinking about the connection between these two for a while, for years, really. So sexuality, in my understanding, it's the thoughts, feelings, attractions, and it can be erotic to ourselves first, really, to other people, to things. And spirituality is our desire for something deeper, for connection to a higher power. And to be spiritual, I think, for me, to be spiritual means to seek out that connection in things, in people, in animals, in nature, to be on this path to understanding the connection within things and how to move through this life, with a deeper meaning to things, not just surface level, but seeing how everything relates to everything else. So sexuality is really how we live inside our bodies and experience the world. So think about your senses, because your senses are going to give you information about everything. So the things that you hear. Music can be very sexual. Sensual, really, I think is a better word to describe sexuality. Because yes, sex is one part of sexuality, but it's not the whole thing. And I think sensuality encompasses more of what I really mean by sexuality. So it's all the things. You can listen to a really good song and feel it inside your body. You're connected, right? Or you can listen to music and not even hear the words, not pay attention to the beat. That's like a disconnection. Similar thing happens with food, right? I don't know about you. I don't consider myself a foodie, but I love to eat, and I love really, really good tasting food. And I don't know if you've ever heard someone describe food as orgasmic, as something that was so good it turned them on. They are tapping into the sexuality and the spirituality, experiencing it fully. If you've never had or had the experience of food being so pleasurable, I don't know, try Thai food. It's one of my favorite things. Thai food just does it for me. Asian food, spices, does it for me. I think it's partly because I'm from the Caribbean, and so the spices are similar, but they're not the same. And so it's just something different that I don't know, that I've never tasted before. So it definitely turns me on. I get that experience with food. I'm there with it, and I am experienced, and I am so turned on by certain foods. It doesn't have to be something spicy or very flavorful. Think of strawberries and cream. Think of eating a juicy peach. I've seen some videos of people eating food very sexually. They are all the way there and present. Also think of presence when we're thinking of connection. Because if you are present in experiencing something, then you're already tapping into the spirituality part. So a lot of people might be turned off by the labels. I do not think the labels are important here. I think it just helps us to know that we're talking about the same thing. But someone may not really care about presence, being present, calling it that's what they're doing, or calling themselves spiritual. A lot of people don't want to call themselves spiritual. They just want to say they're just living or experiencing life. But you can look and see at the way that they live their life to see if they are being spiritual. And they may not want the label, but I think it's just helpful for us to have the label to know that that is the thing that's happening. Some people are really moving through life with kindness. I think kindness is spiritual. Some people move through life with gratitude. Gratitude is very spiritual. And so they may not call it those things. They may just say they're being a good person, or they have this cause that they're really passionate about. They might use the word passion. And it's not important for me that anyone use the same terms that I use. I just think it's helpful that we have the labels so that we know we're talking about the same thing. The people who don't want to use those labels, who don't want to be categorized, I respect. I have no problem with that. One of my sisters is like that. Like it's no big deal. But for me in this platform, I think these labels are very helpful. So a couple other examples of the senses. Think about touch. Let's say you're touching something like velvet or silk. It gives you like this deeper feeling, connection. It's like a turn on. Also, going out and experiencing nature. You know, I think one of the connectors in all of this is being present. And like Eckhart Tolle says, when you tap into the present moment, you are tapping into God, spirit, higher power, and like that's like the most important part, I think. When you separate the two, when you separate sexuality, which is your senses, you're experiencing the world, and spirituality, connecting to something higher, wanting to feel that connection, being present, when you do not include those things in each other, that's when you can start to see yourself having problems in life. There's a lot of different ways to categorize problems in life. This is just one way. It's just one way I see the world. This is I'm gonna do a few videos about sexuality and spirituality. And even though it's something I've been thinking about for a long time, I know I don't have all the answers. I'm still trying to figure things out. And so I want you to receive like my message through that lens. This is part of how I see the world. It makes a lot of sense to me. It may not make any sense to you, and that's okay. You may completely disagree with what I think, and that's okay. Feel free to leave your comment down below. I'm very okay with that. But this is one way that makes a lot of sense to me. The labels that I'm using, I have used for a long time. Maybe not in this exact way, but the connection that I'm making between spirituality and sexuality always existed. But my understanding of it now is what I'm sharing with you. So when you separate spirituality and sexuality, right? So for example, food. Let's say you have an unhealthy relationship with food. A lot of people do. Let's say you're binging. You're eating food to the point where you feel uncomfortable and full, and then you start feeling like all the emotional experience of worthlessness and not being valuable and empty inside. Empty inside is like a big one. Because when you separate sexuality and spirituality, what you're typically going to get is a feeling of void, emptiness inside of yourself. And so the person who eats food, right? Food is pleasurable. Food is part of sexuality, and you're experiencing a food. You can end up having this feeling of voidness if you disconnect the spirituality from food, if you're not present. Because in order to binge and in order to eat that amount of food to the point where you're uncomfortable, you're not present, or else you would have stopped when you felt full. But you're thinking about something else, you're feeling or wanting to stuff the feelings down, and so you end up at the end when there's no more food to eat, or you literally cannot eat anymore, feeling empty inside. Another example, which I think a lot of people maybe can relate to, I can relate to, is sex. So sex is a part of sexuality, and sex should have a spiritual component to it. We should all be using sex to connect us to the other person, right? These are two souls coming together. We should be including spirit, God, higher power, connection with each other in sex. And when you don't, like when you see another person as an object instead of a soul with a body, you are likely to feel disconnected, empty. I think women are more aware of this than men, because men can usually separate their emotions from the sex. But after a certain period of time, even men will start to see that having sex after sex partner and just engaging in meaningless sex with someone they don't really care about, with someone they're not planning to build with, does not satisfy their soul. And they have to stop doing it, or else they're going to end up down this like dark road of using people, neglecting themselves and their needs, and stunting their evolution. That's when addiction, like sex addiction, relationship addiction, like starts to come into play. So I want to have more to say about sex specifically in another video. But what I want you to take from this is that we are all on a spiritual journey, and it really starts with ourself and making the connection between our sexuality and our spirituality in ourself, right? First, so that you are following your life journey, right? Living in your purpose, following your calling, enjoying life to the fullest, being happy and healthy. It's important not to depend on another person to satisfy your sexual needs. It's important not to depend on another person to validate you. All you are worthy, and everything you need to feel satisfied and happy is inside you already. And so get connected, and on your spiritual journey, love yourself, love others, enjoy the things that your senses can connect you to, and be present. Let me know your thoughts on sexuality and spirituality and the connection. And look out for other videos that I'm going to be bringing out on the topic. Thank you for watching.